Welcome everyone. Today we have a Borderlands spotlight for Amara. Amara is a class Siren. She is basically one of your bruiser mage class. Yes, you can be a battle mage, you can be a caster mage, or you can be a melee fighter. She can also be a support. Firstly, let's look at Amara's intro video. I believe Amara's origin is from the Indian goddesses. You can see her special spells. And let's have a look how she starts.
I'm always looking for a fight. A fight for justice. A fight for what's right. But at this point, I'd settle for anyone who doesn't run.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Being a hero to the people has its perks. The fame, the fans, the fashion. I love it all. But a tiger has to hunt.
There you go. You can see her special ability. She's got multiple arms and it's one of her abilities that goes into bruiser form. That is a mage spell she can cast, one of her perks. There's 3 traits for her. And very soon we're going to see her other ability, which is a melee slam.
I'm always looking for a fight. But sometimes, if I'm lucky, the fight finds me.
There you go. Wait, that was not the one. I was looking for the mini slam, girl. There you go. That's the slam. Beautiful. As a Siren class, Amara is one of the few in the galaxy for Borderlands to have spell powers as a mage. But for this particular character, she is even better than a mage. She is a tank, mage, bruiser, melee attacker. Let's go through the skill tree. Let's see what she's like. Amara has 3 skill trees. The first one is Brawl. The second one is Mystical Assault. The third one is Fist of the Elements. The Fist of the Elements is usually with a more consistent controller, crowd controller, AoE support, and consider in controlling enemies and stunning them. On the other side, Mystical Assault is concerned with using her action spells. She becomes a force to be reckoned with, and she strives in killing enemies multiple times and having the kill count with her special rash stacks, which we'll go through. Of course, this is what she's made of, and we can see lots of points were allocated here. As a brawler, Amara is a superb tank, one of the strongest characters in the late game by her stats and by her passive, by the looks of it. Of course, we haven't tested into the late game. And on top of that, Amara can be one of those unkillable classes, which we can look into her skills. We can start with the Brawl. We can see that I have allocated points on the branch for Brawler. We have also allocated points for Mystical Assault and also for the Fist of Elements. Why is that? Because we want to focus mainly on the Brawler for Amara to introduce her as an unkillable tank, assault, melee class. And to do so, let's have a look at the spells. We'll go right away at her final spell, which is Blitz. With Blitz, the mini skill would be the mini override. She now does elemental damage, and if the particular melee assault kills an enemy, she now have cooldown reset, and this melee skill will also increase in damage. This also gives her melee spells to become a dash. So instead of just melee hitting an enemy, she will now dash towards them, have a cooldown, and also have increase of melee damage. You might say, hey, that's not that much for a final ability, but if you look into the branch for a Brawler, you can see that there's lots of skills passively increase her health regen, HP, damage reduction, and also melee damage. Let's have a look. We'll start with Amara's action ability. There are 3 action abilities at the start. In order to understand Amara's abilities as a mage, let's start off with 3 types of damage Amara can have. The first type can be corrosive. This is great for the mid to late game, likely against the robots, because this will counter the high armor units. After that, there's shock damage. Shock damage is great against enemies with shield. Shock damage will not do much against flash tap or against robots, but those enemies with higher shield, you can counter them with shock damage. On the third type, there's the Incinerate. Incinerate is a great early game elemental because this particular damage will increase damage on flash type, which are the humanoids you'll be facing at the start of the game. Amara has 3 abilities at the start. The first one is a face slam. She will jump directly at the target, as we can see, and she basically goes into a third person mode. This ability have a decent damage of 98, 35-second cooldown, which is quite long compared to the other abilities. The next one we have is the face cast. This turns her into a mage. Instead of jumping into the battle, she will become an actual projection. She will use actual projection and attack the enemy. You can see that the damage is a little lower while the cooldown is much lower, 7 seconds lower. This is because this is a smaller AoE radius. Third active ability for Amara, the face of element branch, she can go into the face grabs. This is when she will actively control one enemy, and this enemy will take damage, become stunned, and for the enemy that cannot be stunned, they will just take the damage, but they will not be stopped in the track. So you can see that right away, her abilities does damage with different cooldown. You can go with the controlling, you can go with the mage type, or you can go with the basically jumping into the fray of battle. To start things off, we want to highlight a few crucial abilities for the brawler. At the very start, with 5 points invested, we can have 40% increase of max health for Amara. This will be useful as likely she's going to jump into the fray of battle. And after that, this is a really good ability. A helping hand gives us damage reduction 40% after using her action spell. If we remember, her action spell will allow us to jump into the fight. So this is pretty good as well. After jumping in, you already have the maximum health increase, you now have damage reduction. After that, there's also the ability for arm steal. She does more splash damage, she also reduces splash damage taken. So for attacks that's rocket launcher, grenades, or AoE damage from bosses, she will not take much damage because she can activate her 40% damage reduction. On top of that, she gets the 40% splash damage reduction. So if you're good at dodging bullets or if you're good at running around, you won't take much damage, and 40% is a lot. Also, Amara does a lot of splash damage. That means she increases her damage and reduces damage taken. On the next part, we have this particular ability. Amara will gain increased melee damage, and her increased melee damage will increase by 100%. Her range will also increase by 75%. If we remember earlier, her final ability over here is Blitz. Blitz increased melee damage by 100%. On top of the 100% she does over here, she now have 200% increased damage. If you want to think about how much it is, if she does 10 melee damage, now this doubles into 20 damage, then this doubles again into 40 damage. And this is massive. There's also other skills increase her melee damage. And if you remember, after doing a melee damage that kills the enemy, her melee damage cooldown will reset and she can always jump into the next target. If you have played League of Legends with Master Yi, basically it's like Master Yi with a full CD cooldown, and she can jump onto one after another, and this is pretty deadly. One of the skills we want to look at is another form of increased health. Here Amara gets another 25% increase of maximum health, elemental damage taken reduction, that means all form of elemental damage, whether it's freeze, fire, incinerate, fire is incinerate, whether it's incinerate, corrosive, and also the cryo and shock damage. This particular skill set is making her super tanky, and if you want to jump into the phase of battle with your face slam, you'll be looking forward to melee attack enemies and killing them quickly to reset your cooldown and jump to the next one. On the second last tier, we have Do Unto Others with the second last tier. 1 point ability, 8-second cooldown, retaliate with the action skill elemental damage. This is quite good because Amara will be in the middle of the fight. If this range units that's too far away for her, she can use this one to get to them without having to get close to them. Next to it, we have Jab Cross. Jab Cross is just good all-round spell. You get the gun damage, action skill damage, and this is whenever Amara does melee damage. So while she does melee damage, which she will be because we have so many melee damage increased skills, after doing melee damage, she increased gun damage and action skill damage, and this rotates back. After that, we'll pick up some kill skills, allow her to do more damage, and repeats this. And also remember, if she kills the enemy, she all of a sudden gets another reset of her melee damage, and this also resets this particular 10-second duration. Of course, I saved the best to last. If you look at this spell, it's called Guardian Angel. Now, when Amara goes into fight for your life state, that's when you lose all your shield, not all your HP. She will gain a second wind immediately. she will actually get full health back, and also she will also cast an AoE Force Nova to knock enemies back. Basically, your character have 2 lives. After expending your second life, if you're still within the cooldown, you go into the fight for your life state. In the fight for your life state, you have to kill an enemy within the timer. If you don't kill an enemy, you'll die after that. And this timer will reduce every time it triggers within a fight. So it's so much better to have 2 lives, and if you can run around, survive long enough, within 120 seconds, within 2 minutes, you can use this spell again. So this is why I say she scales so much upwards, because there's spells that reduce damage by percentage. 40% here, 40% again here, 40% again here. 40% health, 40% health, and also 100% health back after she dies the first time, every 120 seconds. So it's a guardian angel from League of Legends. So yes, she's a very durable tank, and her damage wise, we can look into the spells she can add on. The first one we have is Fracture. She will now summon a line of fist erupting on the ground, and this does damage with 28-second cooldown. If you want to get into the phase of battle, I think it's still better to have the face slam. A little longer CD though, but this still does, it allows to allocate your movement and get your melee damage done. But this is pretty good for lower cooldown. The second one, of course, is Downfall. Amara leaps into the air and shoots elemental beams, followed by a slam. The key point is having a slam. The cooldown is the highest, but the damage is the highest of all her abilities. So this is 47 cooldown, 95 plus 14 per second. This has the highest damage potential, but a longer cooldown. So you want to balance. Do you want the lower CD? Do you want the movement with the slam? Or do you want both? On the side, we can see there's a few particular elemental arguments. We mentioned earlier that there are elemental damages in the game. This turns Amara's abilities into corrosive, which is good against robots and high armor units. The other one instantly turns her ability into a shock. Next one, shock is good against shield units. The next one turns her abilities into the incinerate, which is fire, great against the early game humanoids. Coming to the skill variation, Amara can equip 2 skills in the Brawler section. The first one is the Revolution. Amara's skills now generate Nova when it damages enemy, dealing damage to all nearby units. Action skill damage minus and Nova damage. So this does introduces action skill damage, but this will actually be great against multiple units that stack together. Think about as electricity that's going to conduct onto others, and it's going to zap them, and it's going to pretty much bounce between them. So this skill is optional, but we can add it in for now. The second one over here is Glimmer. Glimmer is one of the really fancy ones I'm looking forward to see with Amara. After jumping in with action skill, Amara will now have a particular special effect onto the enemy. She will have a confusion duration, which will confuse the enemy. They will now have a chance to attack their allies. So the enemy will just start using the guns hitting the allies. The downside for this particular argument is that it will increase the cooldown of your active ability, also reduce its damage. So if we have over here 35 seconds and 98 damage, it will be increased cooldown by 20 seconds and reduced damage by 30 seconds. So you're not looking towards to do damage with your actives, you're looking to move into the fight, confuse the enemy, and start killing them with your melee attack. And that's something we'll be looking forward to. Let's have a look at the allocation of points onto the branch on the 2 other sides. Why do we pick those? The first one I want to unlock is Ascendant. All the action skill arguments will increase in effect. So if we remember earlier, we had the Glimmer duration, which is 8 seconds to confuse the enemy. This is the one we're looking for, the Glimmer effect. Well, now with the Ascendant, the Glimmer will go from 8 seconds to 12 seconds by confusing the enemy. This also amplifies all the other special effects on the side. For example, the Stillness of the Mind. This will increase its particular ability. So whichever one we pick, we can consider unlocking this by picking 10 of those spells beforehand. In order to understand the spells we pick, we need to introduce a particular set of ideas called Rush. Killing an enemy grants Amara Rush, which after activating her active spell, she will consume the Rush stacks. And for each of those stacks consumed, she will do additional damage to the enemy. This is nice if you want to use abilities for spell damage, but if you don't plan to do so, you can also use the particular Rush stat for the status effect. if you're into the controlling, if you're into burning or into electricity. But if you don't want to kill enemies and gain rush stacks, you can also just go into a simple increase stats mode, but you can increase the reload speed and weapon and mode switch speed. This is pretty decent if you don't plan to use any of those, but it's ideally you want to pick any of the rush to help with Amara killing enemies. Notice that the rush stack is 10, so you can stack up to 10 times by killing 10 enemies in a go, and after using your active ability, this will be consumed. At the same time, we can consider in lowering Amara's action skill cooldown. There are spells that increased her cooldown. By lowering her cooldown by 25%, it's more likely for us to spam the spell. This is an optional pass because the idea is to turn Amara super tanky, and having this particular spell, that using an action spell will increase her melee damage, would really help with lower CD. So that's why I picked the branch over there. On the third branch, we just unlocked this particular spell. If we look at this, Amara gain increased melee damage and converting it to action skill elemental. The melee damage increase is by 75%. If we started with 10 damage, we increase that by 100% with the passive over here. Now we have 20 damage. Now we increase by another 100%. Now we have 40 damage. Finally, increase 40 damage by 75% again. We'll have about 68 damage. And that makes her very strong in terms of her melee damage. And this whole build is building on her to do melee damage, activate her active spells, and have almost unkillable body with all the damage reduction. One of the adjustments we can make is we can consider this one, clarity. Amara will regenerate her health as the lower her health is, and after using action spell, her health regeneration is doubled for a few seconds. This is because right now we haven't considered the lack of regeneration. So on the cases that we actually lack health regen, we have too much health, we can use this spell to replace any of the other spells we have over here. Ideally, we want to make Amara a super tank that does massive melee damage, that almost one-shot everything, and that is super strong in terms of phase shifting, and also she has enough durability to make mistakes. There's allocation for a revive. After you revive the first time, you can just run around. After coming back 120 seconds later, you have 2 lives again. So let me know what you guys think about this particular Amara build, because this is the one I think that scales the best into late game and that can make her unkillable because of the reduction and also massive damage with her melee damage. Let's look at a few other things which we can cover. If you want to go with the melee damage Amara, you can consider this spell, the personal space. She gets 12% increased damage while being close to the target. This is massive for a shotgun, and being close to the target, she can also do additional damage with her melee attack. So I thought I can add this in by reducing other points on the side. This is a 3 point that goes to 36%. So this favors on shotguns on going melee. The next thing I want to touch upon is you can play Amara instead of being a melee player. You can turn her into a killing machine that wreaks havoc in terms of the enemy backline and the front line with her stacks. We spoke about Rush earlier. Rush gives Amara damage for action spells. Rush gives Amara the chance of increased status effects. And also, Rush will give her reload speed. So you can see that this particular branch allows Amara to kill units, and by getting Rush stacks, she kills even more